There is so much going on in Jamaica today, and we're covering it all in this evening's edition of All Angles, or at least it may seem like it by the time we get through. I'm Dion Jacksonville, and coming up on this program, questions about the makeup of the Constitutional Reform Committee. Are there just too many lawyers on the committee? What about all the other groups? Also concerns about new contracts security guards are being asked to sign. But first, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke responded in Parliament yesterday to criticisms of him having referred to the opposition leader Mark Golding as Massa Mark. Now, here's a bit of what he had to say in his explanation yesterday.
My remarks have been misconstrued, my motives have been misrepresented, and my intentions have been distorted. I regret that some persons may have viewed my remarks as racially motivated. To again be clear, that was never my intention. To apologize, however, Madam Speaker, would be to legitimize what simply is not true.
And by way of explanation, the Finance Minister said that the word massa used in modern day Jamaica is not used in a racial context. He said it's not about power, it's not about color, beg your pardon, it's about power. Just for context, let's just play the original statement he had made in which he referred to Mr. Golding as Massa Mark.
When the opposition leader referred to labor rights, Madam Speaker, or those who identify with a particular party known as the Jamaican Labour Party. And I can't say the words, but he said, beep fools. Beep fools. Call them beep fools. Madam Speaker, that never sound like Marky G to me. That sound like Massa Mark. Massa Mark, Madam Speaker.
So, whole heap of controversy over that statement. Was it a racially offensive statement? Was it not, as the Finance Minister has said? And we want your thoughts on that. So do WhatsApp me. It's 3810072, 876-3810072. Give us your first name. Give us your general location. You can tweet us as well. Our hashtag is TVJ All Angles. We're joined by Dr. Clive Forrester. He joins via Zoom from the University of Waterloo in Canada, where he lectures in English language and literature. Dr. Forrester, good to talk to you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Diane. Nice to be back on your show. Looking forward to the discussion.
So first of all, should Dr. Clarke have apologized?
All right, well, before we get to the apology, it's important to kind of talk about the context in which the statement was made, right? When people communicate and they think about the meanings of words, words could have either denotative or connotative meanings. And the denotative meaning of a word is what you'd find in a dictionary. But the connotative meaning is usually the meaning that is more important. That is the meaning that is derived from the particular context of communication. So when Dr. Clarke says that the way that Jamaicans use massa nowadays doesn't have the racial undertone or the racial stereotyping, but instead it is referring to issues of power, he is correct. But in the context in which he used it at that time in Parliament, any reasonable Jamaican could interpret what he said as something having a racial stereotype, particularly because he, I guess, was trying to reprimand Mr. Golding by saying that what Mr. Golding said about labor rights effectively doesn't seem characteristic of Marky G. And Marky G, of course, is the grassroots, down-to-earth guy. Instead, it seems more like Massa Mark, which, of course, kind of is a jibe at the fact that Mr. Golding is a white Jamaican politician, and white Jamaican politicians have traditionally always have had to defend their authenticity as Jamaican persons who belong to Jamaica. And in that regard, the average Jamaican person will be right to interpret it as racially stereotyping Mr. Golding.
Except though, you sound like you're trying to have your cake and eat it. Because on the one hand, you're saying that Dr. Clarke is correct in saying that,
yes,
essentially the use of the word has evolved. It means power, it no longer means race. But then you're saying because he used it, it's used in a racial context. For one thing, you're trying to get into his head, which you clearly can't do. And he has put on the record to say his intent was not to be racial.
Right.
So if he's saying his intent was not to be racial, and you're acknowledging that there are non-racial uses of the term, then what's wrong with his explanation?
So it's not that the explanation is wrong, but let me see if I could offer a parallel example. So let's say somebody utters the statement, if you don't pay me my money, I promise that you won't live to see tomorrow. Now, the speaker uses the word promise, and promise means a commitment to do something good for somebody. But the way that sentence is interpreted is as a threat. And so, however, the speaker can say, well, I never made any threats. I said the word promise. And because of that, I guess you could call it a technicality, the fact that the word promise denotatively means something good, but the way that it was used in that particular utterance is clearly a threat. The speaker is interpreted as being threatening, but their actual words, the denotative meanings of the words would indicate something else. And I think that is the kind of space that you'd find Dr. Clarke's utterance this time around.
But let's go to context, as you're saying,
yes,
because the context here is Gordon House. And we know what happens in Gordon House. Well, I mean, you can be polite and speak about the cut and thrust of debate, of parliamentary debate, but the reality is that you also have a whole heap of throw word, across the aisle. They call each other's names, sometimes in good fun, for real. Because you can see somebody will say something and the other people will be laughing, and they'll be laughing with one another. Every now and then it erupts and somebody get vexed and then walk out. This is true. But the fact is that oftentimes in Gordon House, they trade what sounds like insults, but, it's part of the political game that they're playing.
True.
So in that context, why is it problematic?
Because the addressee, Mark Golding, is white. Fine? So some of the examples that Dr. Clarke gave to show that Massa is used in race-neutral context was, say for instance, when Christians talk about Massa God, or when a disgruntled union member talks about the Bakra Massa treatment at work. Now, when two Afro-descended persons use Massa or Bakra Massa with each other, it is usually in the race-neutral meaning of the phrase, but it still has that power dynamic and that power dimension, and it is usually kind of tongue-in-cheek. But when the addressee is white, that is when it takes on its racial undertones, because the fact that this person is white and the person who is making the utterance is Afro-descended, is a black person, it now opens up the possibility for that racial stereotyping interpretation.
All right, I'm actually nearly out of time, so let me go back to my first question. Should he apologize?
Massa, me no choose none.
I don't mean you call Massa though.
No.
Because a lot of times these politicians' apologies are performative, right? They apologize just to take the heat off themselves, to calm down a controversy.
Yes.
They're not serious about the apology. They don't mean it. So what's wrong with Dr. Clarke saying, I meant no offense and therefore I'm not apologizing? Plus, I don't believe the word means what y'all are saying it means.
Well, he should have said it. If an apology was going to come, it should have been very early. It should have been like immediately after. Fine, but he dug in and kind of offered up, I guess it was like a mini linguistics lecture in Parliament about the etymology of the word and the non-racial uses of the term. So now, for him to apologize at this stage would be extremely face-threatening, right? He'd lose a tremendous amount of face if he were to apologize at this stage, even though it might very well be the appropriate thing to do.
Still, even if, like I said, it's performative in so many cases?
Well, yes. Well, I mean, it might be performative, but the fact that he would be kind of, I guess, withdrawing his statement and kind of backtracking on what he said as a direct request from the members on the opposing side of Parliament would be possibly enough.
All right, I'm going to have to leave it there. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. Dr. Clive Forrester joining us from Canada. He is a Jamaican, as you can tell, lecturing in the Department of English Language and Literature there. Let's take the break. When we come back after, how many lawyers does it take to constitute a constitutional reform committee? Apparently a whole heap, judging by the composition of ours. We'll get some comment on that when we come back.